Over the last few years, we've seen a rise in a new type of riding, taking the road less travelled, known as gravel grinding. For those not in the know, Josh, what is gravel grinding?
So in the United States, gravel roads are generally made of crushed limestone. It can be very fine and hard packed, basically a dirt road, all the way up to golf ball sized gravel.
In the UK, it's not really something that we're used to. We have towpaths that are fine, hard packed surfaces, and they don't tend to be anything like the scale that we have in the US. There's a definite maybe reluctance getting behind the idea of gravel grinding just because we don't really have it. And I guess we can't really talk about gravel grinding without mentioning the Dirty Kanza. Josh, you're a bit of a vet now, 3-time finisher, is that right?
6-time starter, 3-time finisher, yeah so 50% success rate.
Yeah, pretty hardcore.
So the Dirty Kanza, as the name implies, is a 200-mile gravel road race through central Kansas. Conditions that riders encounter will be the whole gamut of gravel, so hard-packed roads, all the way up to gravel the size of your fist, very rough. Kansas has a reputation for being flat, which isn't quite accurate. It's a lot of rolling hills through the Flint Hills region of Kansas. And the gravel also tends to be very sharp, so you see a lot of racers on the side of the road with flats, which you encountered when you did this year's race.
Yeah, this was the first time doing a gravel event. I dived in at the absolute deep end, and it was a very interesting experience. But with the growing interest of gravel riding in the UK, it throws up some very interesting tech choices. Pure gravel bikes are now very much a thing, whether you like it or not. The thing that I like about gravel bikes is it takes technology from road, cyclocross and mountain biking. So when it came to speccing your bike, what did you sort of look for?
So for gravel racing, especially for endurance gravel racing where you're out there for 12 plus hours, I look for comfort but also and performance. So you're trying to balance those two. So basically fitting the largest tires you can fit in a frame, making sure you've got plenty of supplies, be that food, water, a couple spare tubes, and doing it in a way that's going to keep the weight low. I try to keep as much weight off me and on the bike as possible.
I had a bit of a different approach because I didn't actually get hold of my bike until I was out here 2 days before the Kanza. So when I was looking and speccing the bike up, even tyre choice, it just drove me a bit mental because there's so much choice.
Back when kind of gravel grinding was in its infancy, we were cobbling together mountain bikes with skinny tires, the fattest tires we could fit in a cross bike and still have a bit of clearance. But today with purpose-built gravel bikes, you can basically get what you need right off the shelf.
Even your choice of bike was the Crux. For me, when I heard that, it was an interesting one because I thought that was a pure cyclocross bike. I didn't realise that you could take 40mm tyres, was it you've got?
Just about. I ran 38mm wide tyres, and part of the reason I chose the Crux was because it's been proven at Dirty Kanza and other gravel races. I mean, it is a race-bred cross bike, but it can fit 2 bottles in the mainframe, another under the down tube, and that came about because one of the former winners of Dirty Kanza, Dan Hughes, basically said that's what he needed for a gravel race bike. And Specialized listened, and so that's how the Crux came to be the way it is today. You took a slightly different approach to gravel riding.
Yeah, I went a bit of a different route. Rather than the pure race-ready cross bike, I opted for the Mooch Route 45, and the 45 being the massive 45mm tyre clearance. The tyre choice that I went with was 36mm Clement Explore MSOs. In my head, it added up to a very comfortable ride. And in practice, it was immensely comfortable, to the point it actually surprised me on some of our recce rides. And it's just that combination of having soft tyres and the titanium and some real nice chunky bar tape that just soaks all the vibrations up, and yeah, you don't really notice the gravel and you can get some pretty speedy riding in.
Yeah, there seems to be 2 schools of thought when it comes to gravel bikes. There's like the purpose-built bikes like the Moots here, or finding a cross bike that has let's call it new school geometry. So low bottom bracket, slacker head angle, and massive tire clearance. As I think we've seen, either way can be successful. It just depends on what you're looking for. I personally prefer the handling of a cross bike, just because you want to be able to switch from one side of the road to the other at times to find whatever is going to be the smoothest line. In big races like the Dirty Kanza, where you might be around 1,000 other riders, sometimes you need to get out of someone else's way. So having a bike that's balances agility and stability can be very useful.
So the really interesting thing for me, and probably quite surprising, was the winner of the men's race and what bike he was riding. It was ridden by a pretty good rider, Ted King, and he was on the new Cannondale Slate. It's got the very odd lefty fork.
I interviewed Ted King after the race, and one thing that stuck out in my mind is that he really appreciated the lefty. The lefty Oliver has about 30 millimeters of travel, just enough to take the edge off. But he said it allowed him to basically hunker down on top of the bars in kind of a gravel time trial position. And the lefty soaked up everything and allowed him to stay low on the front of the bike, which was important because he was riding alone for about 100 miles.
There's a definite style when riding on gravel and dirt. You have to be very conscious about your pedal strokes, keep it nice and even, just so you don't get that tyre slip.
Oh, he's spinning it.
It definitely keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, you have to be okay with a little more drifting. So I come from a mountain bike background, so I'm used to the bike kind of sliding through turns, which is very common, especially in larger, chunkier gravel. And so again, not taking corners too tightly and kind of letting the bike straighten out on its own is very helpful.
One thing that actually really took me by surprise was some of the rock gardens that just appear out of nowhere on some of those farm roads. And I think that impacts your tyre choice as well. In my unfortunate situation, I had 4 punctures, so I started just running inner tubes, and you start hitting some rock gardens, almost immediate pinch flat. You've got to weigh up how much protection do I want, whether I want to sacrifice rolling resistance for more protection or the other way around and be a bit riskier.
And tubeless is always a good idea for gravel riding, be it hopefully avoiding pinch flats or avoiding thorns or glass or other debris that's very common on gravel roads. So as a first-time gravel rider doing a 200-mile gravel road race, what were your impressions?
Well, first of all, I'll say I loved it. It's definite type 2 fun. Really, really grueling when you're doing it, but afterwards, amazing. I'm not new to long rides. I've done the Mallorca 312 Sportive a couple of times, which 312 kilometers or 193 miles thereabouts. But I am new to gravel riding. There are some things that I just didn't expect. It's the combination of feeling really, really remote, but still in a race. It's quite exciting, even though you're maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 hours into the ride, where temperatures are close to 30 degrees or Celsius or 85, 90 Fahrenheit. And it's a real shame that the riders in the UK just don't have the same access to gravel like you do here in the US. But where do you think gravel riding is heading?
So I think we're going to see a lot more interest in gravel riding over the next few years. For one, a lot less traffic, a lot less chance for accidents with cars. Another, I think we're going to see the bikes get more specialized. Much like road, where you have road race bikes, road comfort / endurance bikes, I think we're going to see the same thing with gravel. As events like the Dirty Kanza get bigger, you've got thousands of participants, you're going to see more specialized bikes. On the far end of the spectrum, you'll see more bikes designed for comfort, endurance, bikes that have more of a touring bike packing aspect to them as well. So I think we're going to see a lot more gravel bikes in the coming years.